G'day guys, just wanted to give a bit of an update on the Montana 300 Winchester Magnum. It's been a bit of a journey at this stage trying to get to where I wanted. Plenty of demands on my time and work and everything else, but had a good lash at it over the last few months. So as some of you might have seen or picked up, the stock wasn't in the best of conditions on the outside. The finish was compromised, possibly from, a solvent or, insect repellent. And then when I pulled it apart, I wasn't really happy with how the tang was bedding down there either. So they were things I wanted to correct. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, and I'm not going to say that I'm perfect at it, but I think I do pretty well, and hopefully I'll see that in the results when we load the rifle up and get the opportunity to shoot it. At this point in time, not entirely sure when that's going to be, but hopefully soon. So as I said, I did some repairs on the stock using light fiberglass cloth. There are a couple of areas on the comb that probably weren't impregnated properly with resin when it was constructed, and then there was one or two areas where it just didn't seem right. There might have been a bit of damage to it, and then when I'd sanded it back, I'd rubbed out a bit of the resin where it was thin, so I chose to correct those as well. I was pretty happy with how that all came up and the results. From there, then I had a couple of ideas on how to finish the stock. It's a big kicking rifle, reasonably light. Probably comes in all up, and I haven't weighed it yet, but weighing up the components, it'll be about 8.65 pound. So it's reasonably light for a Magnum rifle. So I wanted to have some texture or grip on the rifle in where you'd normally have your checkering on a standard wood stocked rifle. Now that presented some challenges. I tried a few different ideas. Like recently there's one company that you can buy different grades of silica oxide for putting in epoxy resins and using them as a grip surface. They range from around 200 right through to about 900, 1,000 grade, when aligning pretty much with what you would see on wet and dry sandpaper. Now I tried that, probably don't have the gear. You probably need to spray the resin on and then impregnate it, and it needs to be super thin, and you probably have to have some way of applying it thinly. It didn't seem to work out too much for me on my test pieces. The silica oxide is really dense and sunk in the resin, and when I made it a bit thicker, then it was really very heavy, the heavier grades, which were thicker obviously and bigger pieces, they would have torn your face to pieces and your hands to pieces. But I needed it in case I was carrying it in wet weather, shooting it in wet weather, and just handling and climbing through wet scrub. So I went on a search for other solutions, tried a couple of things, they didn't work out, and then I happened on two different effects paints. The one I chose was a Rust-Oleum product called Stone Effects, and I got it in two different colours, and they were slightly different grades. Had a bit of a play with them on some test pieces, and then I used the Granite Effects ones, or the Granite Stone on, made some templates, which were really good. I went to a local model shop, Frontline Hobbies, which those guys are great for this sort of stuff. They know their stuff, and they were able to provide me with some low grade tack stencil paper or stencil plastic that was on a graph, backed by graph paper, and you could cut it out perfectly. So I made some templates out, traced them onto it, them out, made a left and a right, stuck them on the fore end and the pistol grip, and prepped the stock up, and then sprayed this stuff on. First time around when I was unmasking it, I wiped off a portion of the stuff, so then I had to let the whole lot dry and then re-template that one panel and cover up the rest of the stock and do that a second time. But that's the challenges, and yeah, you get disappointed. I learnt that on a previous bedding job, and you've just got to grit your teeth and go, well, it's done. You've just got to plan the best way to get over it and go again at it. So I was then going to use some other Rust-Oleum products for the base coat and the camo, but I just wasn't convinced with the type of paints they were. So I'd previously had another rifle, a Winchester Extreme Weather, which I'd done a camo job on by myself on that stock, and look, I was really impressed and very surprised at how well that job came up. Probably not pro grade, but you know, I'm a lek fitter by trade. I'm not a airbrush artist or painter, car painter by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, you do the best you can. But what did surprise me was I used Tamiya paints, and then I used a product made by Testors, who is now owned by Rust-Oleum, ironically, called Testors Dull Coat, and it's a matte finish clear coat, and that came up really well on that gun. But the really surprising thing was how well it stood up to abuse in the bush and a solvents on it. I had that done for about 5 or 6 years and never marred it. I was really impressed. So it was a pretty easy decision then to say, well, I'm not going to go down this road because I want this finish to be durable. So let's stick to a tried and tested product, which I'd use. So I used Tamiya flat base in a spray can, and then a couple of Tamiya flat colours in the little bottles you can buy, and then over 4 days slowly painted it up, and then put the dull coat on it, and it got 2 cans, which was a total of 4 coats on it. And the camo pattern, sort of halfway through, I wasn't 100% happy with it, and my daughter's got a bit of artistic flair and ability, and I said to her, why don't you come out and give me your opinion, and this is what I thought, and you tell me what I should do, and you pick the colours. And so she provided some input, and to the design and the third colour. And you know, I was a bit worried to start with, but yeah, it's really growing on me. So I was really happy with that. The other thing that was an issue with the rifle was, and I haven't got a lot of photos of that, but the trigger was would have been a traditional heavy trigger. Now, coming out of the States, we know what many of them are like, and Montana Rifle Company stuck with the original Winchester Model 70 trigger design on this, which was good. It's very simple. Yeah, it's not prone. Well, it's prone just as probably much as any other trigger to icing up in cold, wet conditions, but because it's all exposed, it could be easily de-iced and then made serviceable really quickly. So it's really good in that engineering functionality and serviceability. But what it isn't the best for is getting a good trigger pull on it. The trigger came out beautifully. It's down at 2.6 pounds, which is really nice. Very minimal creep. It's not notchy or draggy, so I'm really happy with that. It was from that point, it was time to mount the scope up. I'd initially tried to go with Leupold Backcountry mounts. They're very similar to the Tallies, but they're probably in some respects a more substantial mount. They look great. They're not cheap, but they're excellent. And when I mounted them up, it looked magnificent. I'm going, oh, this is great, you know, backslapping myself. And then I thought, hey mate, you want to put the bolt handle in and just check all the clearances and that before you go ahead. And lo and behold, the bolt handle was kissing the power change ring on the scope. Well, at this point in time, with COVID and things shutting down, was going to be nigh on impossible to get a set of highs in the Leupold backcountries. I hunted around quite a number of places, chasing data on ring heights and base heights, and I even made 2 1 a.m. Australian time calls to America to 2 scope mounting companies in America to find out what their dimensions were. And because the trick here is that some companies measure their mount heights from the top of the receiver to the base of the scope, and others measure it from the top of the receiver to the center line of the scope. So, you know, given 1 inch and 30 mil and now even 34 mil scopes are reasonably common, you've got to be careful about what measurements you use, and you've got to compare apples with apples, obviously. So that was another deviation from my original plan. Luckily I'd bought, just as a contingency, which I didn't think I'd have to use but ended up, I had bought a pair of Leupold PRW bases, or in actual fact I didn't buy them. The best mate who I'd bought the rifle off me had bought them, and he gave them to me with the rifle, so I had them. So then it was a matter of finding a set of rings the right height to fit, to give me just the right height, not going too high, but getting that bolt clearance. Objective bell clearance wasn't going to be an issue now, but I had to go high to get it above that power change, or get the power change ring above the open bolt handle. There I ended up with a set of Warn Maxima horizontal splits rings. They're a beautiful made ring, as are the Leupold PRW bases. And my local gun shop actually had a set of these Warn Maximas, which was magnificent. But the downside there in one respect, but could be an upside in another respect, is I've gone from Leupold backcountries that weighed a total of 65 grams to a set of bases and rings that now have 2 inner faces rather than just one, that weigh 211 grams. You know, like I said, the rifle's a bit heavier, 3 times heavier on the rings and bases, but that weight may help settle the recoil down a little, so that was good. And being this rifle had been something different, I wanted to make it something a little special, or a little unique. I decided on a finishing touch on the rifle. I was going to go one way and I decided against that, and I ended up going another way. You'll see that shortly in the reveal, and that turned out really, really well, and it's magnificent, and the price of it, can't believe it, but we'll talk about that shortly. So we're on to over the last couple of days I've been getting brass prepped up. I'm going to go a slightly different roll or route with that. What I'm going to do is, there's a method which I'll put a link down below on a video that I came across while I was doing some research, from some guys I'd read about but I'd never searched their website out or their YouTube channel. They're the 6.5 guys. So okay, here it is. This is Miss Montana in all of glory. Hopefully this is staying in focus, but really happy with the results. As I said, I was a bit apprehensive about the camo pattern to begin with, but I'm very happy with it, and it's grown on me a lot over the last week. I think the flat grey suits the stainless finish. I was considering getting it Cerakoted, but at this point in time I just can't find someone that's an approved Cerakote applicator that I trust. There's one guy, but he's not doing a lot of work at all because there's so many other guys that are probably backyarders that are undercutting him, that he just doesn't see it as worthwhile. Yeah, look, if you're wondering what just happened with the light, my little Litra LED just went flat, which is a bugger, but we'll carry on. So I'm really happy with how the Maven came up. It looks great. I'm hanging to get this thing out in the field and have a look at it. And in the review, I've spoken to my mate and my brother. We're gonna put this thing up against a Z6, a Z5, a VX5 HD, and a VX6 HD. Now, we're not going to carry on about technicalities and that. We'll just each give our objective views on each scope, on the pluses and minuses under field conditions. So I think that's the best way, because I think then it gives everyone the chance to see what three blokes think about it in field conditions. Everyone's eyes vary, and what they want out of a scope varies. So I think that's going to be really interesting. And then I think that's a great tool for people to watch, and then they can go and say, well, I'm going to consider these two or these three and have a look at them in the flesh and see what they think. They're, good glass is a big spend, it's anywhere from $800 to $2,500 these days. So, if people want to get a good idea from other people that are using similar stuff, then I think this will provide the opportunity. So I'm really happy with the way it sits. It's got just the right amount of clearance. I'll just close that back into parallel on it. It looks great, it works well, and feels fantastic. So I spoke a couple of minutes ago about a little point of difference to make this rifle unique or a bit special. And in the last 3 weeks, I've read that Montana Rifle Company has gone out of production. The company was sold to some private capital venture group guys. It wasn't making enough money. That's obviously why it was sold. Now these guys have bought it. The stats are that they increased their production twofold in 2019 what they had done in 2018, but it just wasn't enough to keep the company profitable, so they've shut it down. So I haven't seen a lot of these rifles in Australia. This is the third one I've seen. So they're not that popular, they're not common. So this thing is probably reasonably rare in Australia. Now, I wanted to give it something different, and then when I heard that, I started thinking. And as some of you that have seen Instagram, the website, this rifle has become known as Ms. Montana, and so I sourced out a guy locally that does laser engraving, and $15 this guy did this for. I could not believe it. It is magnificent. It just makes a little statement about this gun and what it is, and it sets it apart. So we'll see how it goes. So you might be able to see the small grip panels in here, and up here I did with the textured paint. So yeah, we'll get this out in the field as soon as we can and shoot it in and have a look at the different scopes and see how the Maven sets up. Yeah, holding it and looking through it, I'm pretty darn impressed so far. I haven't got the turret on the top. I'll sight it, I'll do the load development, get the ballistics done. I'll go a bit into that, how I work that out, and then I'll fit the turret and then get it out into the field and we'll test it. So yeah, thanks for the support, guys. Keep watching. If you think there's other people that are interested in this stuff, yeah, link it in, share the video, whatever you like. Yeah, the first few videos have been stuff in this room in the shed, but yeah, I'll get away doing plenty of hunting, and hopefully I can share that where I can, and yeah, we'll see some good stuff. I know people are doing it tough. I know a few guys have posted up on Instagram about how good it is to watch videos of other guys out there hunting, and how much that means to them and keeps them relatively sane, or they can keep that connection. So yeah, stay cool, we'll get through this, and I look forward to shooting this. Thanks a lot, guys.